Astrotometry log. It is May the 4th, 2010. It's approximately 22:46 UTC. This is a follow-up on the last earthquake log watch for an earthquake in the northern hemisphere. And I want to first apologize for the little barble at the beginning of that video. I'm not sure what happened with the editing, but by the time I found out about it, I didn't want to go back and change it and have it be historically inaccurate. But the geomagnetic disturbance associated with the most recent coronal hole for this watch is about over. It's about ending. But the solar wind speed is still very high. And so even though the watch for this geomagnetic storm is more or less ending now, I'm expecting that we're still in danger for a shock when this normalizes. When this goes back to normal, it's sort of like the pressure on within, in a sense, the pressure within the material will suddenly decrease theoretically. And so even though we've seen a 6.1 event in the Izu Islands in Japan, I don't think that this activity is over. The activity in that region is fairly normal right now, except for this event, except for this 6.1. The activity that we've been seeing is fairly normal for this area, maybe a little bit above normal with some of the larger events that have been recorded. But I'm suspecting that this is not over yet, and that we may see more activity down here across the equator. And I don't know if this is a foreshock, but it may be a foreshock for another event during this watch period that is more equatorial, or even slightly below the equator here. And the reason I say that is because there was a part of the coronal disturbance that formed later. And if you watch right here, this little thread right here, I'll go ahead and scrub back and forth through here, and you can see how that forms rather suddenly, and it extends down there across the equator. And while we have seen the disturbances down here already, these might be foreshocks for a larger event. It's possible that these are the hypersymmetric activity with that particular part of the disturbance, but I'm still concerned about an event in this area, and shocks that we see may also coincide with the closure of this particular hole. When it came over the limb, it was already formed. And in astrotometry, this is understood to be the hypertime shadow of the Earth's orbital inconsistency. And so that's a very different model than the one that I've been presenting as the disturbances in the electromagnetic field, which are sort of the measurable ones. The disturbance in the electromagnetic field in astrotometry is understood to be a symptom or a coincident feature of the Earth's movement through time. And so since this was already present when this came over the limb, this may indicate a disturbance that happens more when this feature closes up. But there was a sudden change in the disturbance also. If you notice, the size of the disturbance from there to here increases significantly on the 28th and 29th. And so we're going to be moving into that period. The amount of time technically it takes the solar wind, quote unquote, to reach the Earth. And so we're going to be moving into that period in the next couple of days. And so I don't think that even though we're seeing the geomagnetic activity ending, that it's necessarily over. It may go back up. And there was a 6.3 in Chile. And I don't consider this a hit on this forecast at all. This is not something that I was actually looking for. I'm not sure that I could have predicted this. If you look in the latest 195 angstrom image from SOHO, you can see that there is coronal disturbance down here. Now, what I'm suspecting is that from this event we will see the formation of a coronal disturbance. And so there's a resonance, I believe, that's happening in both directions, which is why sometimes you see the hole without a quake. At least that's part of the current theory. Now, this is all very speculative. I wouldn't consider this watch over until this activity returns to normal. So thanks for watching, and keep an eye on this, and I'll let you know if there's any changes in my watch on this.